Hi everyone, we're going to be continuing on with our Lewis structure and bond polarity notes. So you'll need to have those items out along with your electronegativity reference chart. And we're looking at the back of the electronegativity reference chart where you see a data table like this, where it shows you bonding atoms, lone pairs, molecular shapes, and bond angles. We're going to be using the Lewis structures we have drawn in conjunction with this data table in order to identify what type of shape we would have if we actually built this model in a lab, which we are going to be doing. So the first thing we have to have is a correctly drawn Lewis structure, which we do. We see right here we have correctly drawn the AsCl3 or arsenic trichloride Lewis structure. Okay. The next thing we have to do is we need to know what a bonding atom is. A bonding atom. So on the reference chart that you have, let's identify what a bonding atom is. So a bonding atom is simply an atom attached to the central atom. An atom attached to a central atom. So we have to count the number of atoms that are attached to the middle. Okay. If we come up, okay, the middle atom, what would the middle atom be? All right, the middle atom is the one everything's attached to, the arsenic. So that means the chlorine, this is a bonding atom. Okay, that means arsenic is what we would call a central atom. The bonding atoms are the terminal atoms. The central atom is the one in the middle. Terminal meaning at the end, right, for bonding atom. So we can see here we have one chlorine that's a bonding atom, a second chlorine that's a bonding atom, a third chlorine that's a bonding atom. That means we have 3 bonding atoms. So in our data table, we will see that there's something that says number of Ba, that's the number of bonding atoms, and we just said there's 3 because we have 3 chlorine atoms that are attached to the central arsenic. Okay, according to that data table, we also need to know the number of lone pairs. But here's the thing about lone pairs. You only count lone pairs on the central atom, the one in the middle that everything's attached to. So now we're going to come back up. We already established that arsenic here in the middle was our central atom, right? And we see that on that central arsenic, we have one little pair of electrons there. That one little pair of electrons we've already discussed is known as a lone pair. We only have one lone pair of electrons here. This is one lone pair. We do not count the dots on the bonding atom. It's only the lone pairs on the central atoms that are going to determine the shape of the molecule. So right here we have one lone pair. That's 2 dots, but that's one lone pair of electrons. So now over in your data table, go find where it says number of LP. The number of LP, that's your lone pairs, and we said there's 1, and it's on the arsenic. It's on the central atom. The fact that it has 3 bonding atoms and 1 lone pair is going to help us find the shape. So we come to that chart, and we look and see, okay, where do we have 1 bonding atom, and where do we have 3 bonding atoms? We had 3 bonding atoms, and where did we have 1 lone pair? So this would be 2 bonding atoms, that's out. Okay, here, notice we got 3 bonding atoms. This is 3 bonding atoms. But then notice for the lone pairs, it was 0. So that means this one's out because we have 1 lone pair. So we keep trucking. 4 bonding atoms, no, we have 3. All right, here's another one with 3 bonding atoms. We're looking for 1 lone pair. We have 1 lone pair. So notice what we have here is a shape that we call trigonal pyramidal. Sometimes you'll also hear it called trigonal pyramidal, trigonal pyramidal, trigonal pyramidal, whichever you want to say. But remember, tri means 3, right? Okay, that prefix tri means 3. So anything that's trigonal is going to have 3 bonding atoms. Notice it's pyramidal. Okay, and here's why. You see this weird little shape up here, right there, that little teardrop shape? That's actually the lone pair of electrons. It's an electron cloud representing the lone pair of electrons. Okay, so that means our shape we can come up here and call trigonal pyramidal. Pyramidal, that's also acceptable. Okay, so we're only going to be filling in right now the number of bonding atoms, the lone pairs, and the shape. We'll be working on the molecule polarity and everything else a little bit later. All right, so let's try another one. All right, we are looking at carbon monoxide that we have already drawn. So we're looking at the Lewis structure we already have for carbon monoxide. All right, now notice here, we only have 2 atoms. Nothing can be in the middle. You can't have a central atom if nothing's in the middle. So we have no central atom here. So this is an exception. Okay, because if you notice in our chart that we are trying to look at, 2 bonding atoms means we have something that's in the middle, right? Because something's on either side of it, right? 3 bonding atoms means that, again, we have 3 atoms that are in the middle of something, right? Or that are on the end of something in the middle. So if we only have 2 atoms themselves, nothing is central. So that simply means we don't really have any lone pairs because there's no central atom. Okay, so the fact that you have dots here, right? You have dots here, you have dots here, but we're not calling those lone pairs because there's no central atom. Remember, lone pairs only matter on the central atom. There are no central atoms here. So really, we have 0 lone pairs. Really, we have 0 bonding atoms because we don't have anything in the middle. So our shape is just linear. Okay, linear line. And if you look up here, this is essentially just a line. It's 2 atoms that are bonded straight next to each other. It's essentially just a line. So anytime you just have 2 atoms and 2 only, it's always going to be a linear shape. Okay, now there is another type of linear shape that we'll get into a little bit later. All right, let's take a look at the hydrogen monoxide water molecule that we made. All right, so again, we will need to find out how many bonding atoms we have. So remember, bonding atoms are those attached to the central one. So hydrogen's a bonding. That's another hydrogen atom that's a bonding atom. So we have 2 bonding atoms. Okay, the 2 H's here and here, those are my 2 bonding atoms. Okay, that's the 2 H's. Now we look for lone pairs. Lone pairs only matter on the central atom, and our central atom is this oxygen. And we see a lone pair here. We see a lone pair here. That means here we actually have 2 lone pairs. Okay, yes, we have 4 dots, but that's 2 pairs of electrons. So we have 2 lone pairs. So now we're looking in the chart for 2 bonding atoms, 2 lone pairs. Okay, so do you see anything that is 2 bonding atoms, 2 lone pairs? Yep, right here. 2 bonding atoms, 2 lone pairs. That means our structure is bent. Okay, that's why we drew it bent. That's why we bent down these bonds and drew the hydrogens towards the end, because it's bent shape. Okay, and again, these little these little teardrop shaped things that you're seeing there and there, it looks like little bunny ears. Okay, that's the lone pair of electrons that we have here on the central atom and here on the central atom. It represents that cloud of electrons that are not being shared with the H's. Okay. All right, so let's now go back and take a look at the phosphate ion. Okay, the phosphate ion we drew in class. Remember, the ions have these square brackets around them with the oxidation number. Again, we're looking for the number of bonding atoms and the number of lone pairs. So the bonding atom, those are the ones attached to the middle, that'd be the oxygens. So 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens, so 4 bonding atoms. The central atom would be the one in the middle, the phosphorus, and we don't see any dots on the phosphorus, so 0 lone pairs. So we're filling in our data table, 4 bonding atoms, 0 lone pairs, and we're looking at that shape here in the data table, and we see 4 bonding atoms, 0 lone pairs is tetrahedral, and tetra means 4, so 4 bonding atoms is tetrahedral. Okay, so at this point, what we need to do is we need to take a look at our Lewis structure practice problems homework, where we had worked problems 2, 3, 5, and 6, and we need to identify their shapes as well. So we want to get out the Lewis structure practice problem. Okay, so we had to do number 2. So if we come down here and we look at number 2, okay, that was our structure that we had drawn for homework and in class. And we see that we have 2 bonding atoms, the 2 H's here. So 2 bonding atoms. We're filling in our chart on our homework. Now we look for the lone pairs, but remember the lone pairs have to be on the central atom. So sulfur's the central atom, and I see 2 sets of dots on it. That's 4 dots, but that is only 2 lone pairs. If I look on my reference chart for 2 bonding atoms and 2 lone pairs, look on the reference chart, and we see that corresponds to a bent shape. Bent. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. So number 3, the oxygen molecule, the diatomic, that was our structure. And notice, really, we have 0 lone pairs and 0 bonding atoms because we only have two individual O's, right? We said that's an exception earlier. We only have 2 atoms in total in the molecule. It has to be linear. We don't even need to look that up on the data table. All right, now let's take a look at number 5. Okay, so for number 5, again, we need to know the number of bonding atoms. Those are the ones attached to the middle one, and the number of lone pairs on the middle one. So the middle one is the P, and I can right off the bat see there's 2 dots there. 2 dots means I have 1 lone pair on the central atom, which means the CLs, this CL, this CL, and this CL, they're all bonding atoms, which is 3. So I go to my reference chart, 3 bonding atoms, 1 lone pair. So I would say 3 means tri, right? So this is going to be trigonal something. But the fact that it only has the 1 lone pair is going to make it trigonal pyramidal, or trigonal pyramidal, however you prefer to say it. All right, let's take a look at number 6. So again, we're looking for the number of bonding atoms, the number of lone pairs. Well, the F's are all the bonding atoms because they're attached to the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the C in the middle has no dots on it, so 0 lone pairs. Remember, the dots on all the bonding atoms don't matter. It's how many dots are on that central carbon, and there aren't any. Now look at the reference chart for 4 bonding atoms, 0 lone pairs. So 4 is tetra, so I know this is going to be tetra something, and we see it's tetrahedral. Okay, so that is how you identify your molecular shapes. You simply are looking for your bonding atoms, which are the ones that are attached to the middle one, and then you're looking for how many electrons are on the middle atom. All right, make sure you're coming in for help if you need it. Please make sure you are coming for extra help if you need it.